Perfect. All right, let's get recognition of our great sponsors.
God, I have to start yelling again. Okay, here we go.
And then that will be done. Let's not do that again. Jesus, I'm an idiot. All right, hold on a second.
Jazz Cabbage Cafe is sponsored by the Botanical Company. Redemption Cannabis, Swale Leaf Solutions, the Trademark Company, CrowGroupOnline.com, Custom 420 promos featuring Culture Clothing.
All right. Yeah, it worked. Yeah, it was labored. But
always with criticism, man. You can never just be happy.
The original problem is the fact that it's really loud and needs to be redone and all that kind of stuff that I just haven't done anything about it.
It's okay. Sorry.
But anyway.
Jazz Cabbage Cafe, Jamie Lowell, Mr. Hashbash, Adam Brook, and I am Rick Thompson. Take it away, Jamie.
That's all true. Check it out. Yes, we get Latricia at the beginning of the show.
Woo!
And you'll be interested in some recaps and some goings on that took place the last few days. In part.
There's some noise walking in here for a minute. Give me just a minute.
Okay. Check this out. Remember this gal?
Mm-hmm. Oh, of course.
Charmie Gholson jumps in and joins us. Hasn't been around Michigan for a little bit.
Can't hear anything.
Can hear you though. You know. All right. Well, Charmie will figure out sound and all that kind of stuff, but it'd be cool to find out what's been going on with her and what she thinks about what's going on in Michigan, which is somebody that's played a big role in for years. A lot of the work that we've done, greater than Cannabis in some respects, with civil asset forfeiture and other issues. They're all kind of related on some level, but looking forward to having some of these conversations and finding out. Can you hear us okay now, Sharon?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi. Hi, Jamie.
Remember Adam Brook?
Hi. I'm sorry, Adam who?
There you go. Really?
Hi, Rick.
Hola.
Hola, my friend.
What's
Hello,
Latricia.
What's
it say in your shirt?
Hi.
I think it says Cresco.
Cresco. Okay.
Yeah, it's Ohm shirt when I worked at Ohm.
Huge corporate company. That's what Charmie represents. Big money. And I don't know if you actually have you formally met Latricia before.
I have not. I'm so pleased to meet you, though.
Latricia.
Hi, nice to meet you.
I'm so pleased to meet you. I appreciate your harm reduction work. Thank you.
Thanks.
And had this been, just not too long, just a couple of short years ago, we'd probably be working together on some stuff.
And I hope we can when I come back to Michigan as well.
Go.
Yeah.
That'd be excelente. We have some campaign stuff to do, so I can only be with you guys for about 20 minutes or so.
Right on.
But I wanted to jump in really quick.
Thanks for joining.
We had a lobby day, and on this show, Trish, you were the only one that was actually physically there. I know a lot of us were there in spirit and contributed a little bit to some of the information and stuff like that. But just what happened? How'd it go?
We got there bright and early. Met up with all of the different groups that were involved. Gave them some literature just so that way they can pass it to their representatives. Broke up in groups, of course, like we did before, and everybody took a floor. Amy, myself, Rick Nancis, and Joe Sullivan hit up the Senate. It was kind of crazy because that day was actually National Addiction Awareness Day, and they had probably about 15 different organizations outside of the Capitol that were actually pumping out information about harm reduction and different rehabilitation processes and things. And so it was kind of nice because the vibe was there and whatnot. But we didn't get to see any senators. around their office. How strange. But we did, make sure that we had some good conversations with their staffers, especially about 5512 was where our main focus was, obviously in the Senate. We had quite a few people who are pretty receptive, about the information than they already are now. But others are still going to need a little bit more convincing. But how can you convince somebody who basically just believes the judge over everything,
Right. That's a tough. 5512 is particularly tough because the judges want it. They're working with some of the most powerful lobbying organizations in the state. And that creates just a really tough challenge with trying to get a different perspective into some of the lawmakers.
Well,
even ones with good
I'm not
intentions.
giving up. I'm not giving up because so basically I contact, like I told you before, I got a hold of Samsha. Samsha sent me over to the Department of Drug and Alcohol Programs. The Department of Drug and Alcohol Programs sent me to the Michigan Department of of Health and Human Services. So I have the role of getting the clarification that could just basically stop this. I already got it. I got it. But what do you do from here? Like, you send it to your senators and hope that they understand it? They don't even understand it as it is. So they're only doing what they're told, either yes or no, or what's more beneficial to them. There's some type of benefit in them for them, obviously. But we do have a couple other meetings coming up with different senators as well. We also got in contact with Susan Ausman, whose son was the one that overdosed in Pennsylvania. She wrote us a written testimony, so we're going to be able to send that to our senators too as well. We also have a couple different articles that are being written about it in Oregon and Pennsylvania right now too. So there are other people that are on this train that understand it, that are going to start pushing out content and just pushing out the hashtag or judges are not doctors. So we'll see what happens in time, but we're just taking out everything that we got now and pushing it back out again and hope to get some response.
So, Charm, the 5512, exactly what Latrice just said, judges are not doctors. You remember that as a tactic in the regular courts throughout the years. This has to do with, instead of just respecting the immunity and letting people who use medical marijuana and still have the ability to choose a volunteer specialty court like drug court or veterans court or something like that over the alternative, which is harsh charges and several years in jail.
Bullshit.
Instead of simply letting them do that, they want to change the law so they have complete control over that, and then make the people have an additional hearing and bring their doctor, their recommending doctor, to testify, in which time the judge will decide if there was a bona fide doctor-patient relationship and if the condition was severe enough to continue using cannabis. Whereas, the people that are using their cannabis medicine are supposed to kind of not be discriminated against in the first place and then not messed with, upon entering the court. This is something that the judges cannot get over. They just can't imagine not having this kind of control in their court. And they tell the lawmakers this in earnest, and they even some lawmakers who might have some really good intentions just go, okay, yeah, these judges want it, so we're gonna go. Lots of other thing that Latrice was saying that's very difficult.
And didn't Senator Jones introduce a bill similar to this early on after we passed the Medical Act? I think it was one of the first bills that remember Senator Jones?
Oh, I do definitely remember Senator Jones.
I believe he did when he was still in the House of Representatives, when he was Rep. Jones. Again, remember with the wall.
The marijuana bars was his famous one.
And the alcohol, you didn't want cannabis with alcohol.
Oh, right. They did pass that one, actually.
They did?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yep. Yeah, you can't have an alcohol drink can be mixed with cannabis. They do have the stuff now where it's like wine or something where the alcohol's been removed and then it's been infused with cannabis. But to have both of them there is what that law covers.
Somebody's lobbying the legislature for this if they're still doing it 12 years later.
Yeah, well, right now it's really, the 5512 that Latrice is talking about is really tough because, again, it's a group of judges that want this. Like the district judges that are active inside these lawmakers' districts are calling them and saying, yeah, please support this one.
Wow.
So
is this federal or a Michigan bill?
It's Michigan. So the cannabis legal section is deciding whether or not they're going to support it or not. And And so that's obviously we're going to try to encourage them to be in opposition. That could be helpful. And then Camorn was the lawyer in the Michael Toohey case, which upheld the immunity in the regular courts, meaning the judges couldn't tell somebody they can't use their medical marijuana on probation. So
I cannot believe you guys are still fighting this bullshit.
I know it's the same shit. It's a new cycle of it. But Spartan Grown was what helped out with Lobby Day and is also talking about the 5300 bills. Those are these anti-caregiver bills where they push it in the House. Many of us got together, everybody on this call, and many others, including Zahra, who's Zahra Abbas, who's about ready to join us here in a second. And they really slowed that one down. We had a rally, had a lot of good conversations directly with lawmakers on line or on Zoom, and then also in their offices. Gave out some good information. Similar to what they did the other day, but like it was a very, very well participated in then. So now they hired Mark Fisk from Byram Fisk to go work on the Democrats in the Senate and do the same thing over there and try to get momentum coming in from that side back into the House. So that's when Spartan was warning people. Go ahead, Adam.
Our activism caused them to pivot, and then it became the cannabis safety bills or something.
Cannabis safety.
Yeah, so they want to see like the cannabis that even a caregiver just transfers to their connected patient have to go through all of the testing processes and stuff like that.
Just complete outrage. And the worst part is they've masked it in saying that they are the cannabis industry. They are looking out for patients and caregivers and safety issues. And it's not us against them. It's they came in and said we. And they lied because they weren't we. They were us.
Just unilaterally driven by big money interest. Everybody else. Robbins Group, which is a business group, as you know, Michigan Cannabis Industry Association, the largest industry association, in opposition. All of the major advocacy groups, MiNORML, Weedsters, in which Latrish heads up, all in opposition. Nobody wants it except for the small group of big money interests that is pushing it.
Well, guess what? We got a meeting with the Michigan Chamber of Commerce this weekend too, as well.
Yeah, they're a bunch of rat bastards. You'll love that. But I know we only have Latrish for a short time.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So just in terms of those bills, were those discussed also? And then were any discussions with the House to like, hey, maintain your position on this because they're coming back at you? Was that
there were no representatives or senators in their office the whole entire time we were there.
It was Thursday. They're not there on Thursdays.
We were not there. But we did some extra work too. Like I said, we can go and talk to our representatives all we want and, tell them what we want. And that's like chasing 140 people around in a circle. So, one of the things that we've been trying to do is actually get a seat at the table with the people who are also making decisions about this or who are for it. So, we did actually happen to have an experience with, like I said, the Michigan Chamber of Commerce. I just received an email back asking if we would join them at the table to speak. So I'll be reaching out to all of our friends and family in the community and talking about how that meeting's going to go for us, of course. Bring whoever needs to come to that meeting as well. Other than that, we just basically was able to give them information. That's it. There was really no ability to even have conversation or even know what happened because there was nobody there.
Okay.
Trish, you were also at IHEMP though, too, right? I know you're running out of time.
You're good. What's up?
You were at IHEMP also too.
Yes. Yeah. We were at IHEMP. We got to have a panel there in the morning. It was a grassroots effort program. We also had the Clean Smoke Project. What's it called again? It's Mitzi's organization too.
Black Cannabis Access.
Yes, thank you. And then we had Josie there, and Zahra was there too. So it was and Amy Carter was there too. And there was a lot of, there wasn't very many people in the room, but it was still an opportunity, even if it was to hook one person. And there were two. The representative by artist came in and spoke to as well, or checked it out. I just eyed people or whatever. So yeah, it was definitely a long weekend. We got a lot of information out to a lot of people. We made a lot of meetings. As far as I know, we are going to start seeing what for 5512 because the anti-caregiver package, really what we've been working on that is just trying to get some evidence against whatever they're saying. So we're going to work with the Michigan State Police Department. We're working with, of course, the meeting that we're having with the chamber. We also have other people that are working on other things, like trying to get a hold of commissioners to find out how bad of a problem it is with the big indoor grows that are supposed to be the caregiver grows. And then we're also setting up a meeting with them, or excuse me, the CRA here in the future as well about that. So.
Right. When you say evidence against them, I mean, I just want to also add or demanding that they demonstrate some evidence for wanting to do the things that they're doing.
They won't.
They're relying on smoke and mirrors more than substantiation, on this one.
People the people that are listening to this stuff already know it's a lie. So the only way we're going to really even get around this is to actually provide the truth.
There's that, and just there's so many lawmakers that will take in new information and make a decision. Many already know what's going to happen. That the truth, the facts, those kind of things don't really matter. It's what the deal has been made, where the transaction is.
Not in Lansing.
Yes. Well, I mean, Charmie's around long enough to get frustrated with Lansing too over the years.
The problem is they all know that their vote doesn't necessarily count because they know the game. They know what they're up against. They know that it's a bunch of horse trading. They know this. So they realize that, my vote isn't going to make this thing pass. So I might as well pay off the favor I owe. And that ends up, I mean, I can agree with this bill all I want, but it's not going to pass. So because it's not going to pass, my no vote is actually more valuable to my constituents. Well, that's the game they're playing.
Well, and of course, we learned in 2014 and also with the vote in the House on 5512 that, even commitments lawmakers make to us to do certain things, they don't follow through with. And then when you confront them about it, they're like, oh, well.
Even after cash, I might add.
Even after the phone call saying you better come up with $5,000 if you want this amendment to see the light of day.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's how it works. And the problem, Charmie, is people don't know that. People don't understand how the game is played.
It's
people
disgusting.
Think, right. And people think that there's some corruption in that. That's the game. That's how it's played. If you want to be on the level, you do it that way. You don't take money. You don't take money in an envelope in a corner of a dark room somewhere.
No.
You put it all on paper.
You go buy yourself a legislator and you keep feeding that guy for 4 years so he shepherds your stuff through the House and the Senate. And then it's not even a guarantee. It's horrible. It's horrible.
6 years.
It's heartbreaking.
They just passed a bill in the U.S. Senate that says that is their First Amendment right now, too, to collect contributions or donations from whoever wants to give them to them.
Yeah, they reinforce Citizens United.
What?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what did you just
happened
say?
2 weeks ago. It happened 2 weeks ago. The U.S. They passed it in the U.S. Senate that there is no cap on contributions or donations whatsoever from anyone. It's their First Amendment right.
Right. And I'll be honest. I'm not wealthy, but if I was, I would want that First Amendment right.
Yeah.
Naturally.
Its effect is the issue. It makes an unfair election process. The person expressing themselves can spend all the money they want, but
what we really need is government-funded
balance in the system.
Government-funded election programs. Everybody gets the same amount of money, and you start from there. There's no influence peddling. There's no anything. Right. And that way you defeat the two-party system by destroying the financial monopoly that they have, and you let ideas rule the game. So
as we come up on 420, we're going to bring in Zahra and Leaha.
One last thing before I go, you guys, that I wanted to tell you. Oh, hi, Leaha. How you doing? Hi, Zahra.
Hey, good to see you.
When we talked to Tim Souther, it's so fucky right now in this place that he had to put. He said in the 40 years that he's been in office, he has never seen anybody try to pass a law through a different committee. So, for example, he had to say no to 5 different bills through the, what was that again? Agricultural Committee to try to put abortion through that.
Right.
So there's just all over the place mess. So either way, it looks like we have another challenge to go, but we'll see. But I have to jump off here. I'm sorry I couldn't stay, you guys. Want to
No, I
make sure.
appreciate the report.
Thank
you.
And all the research and all the work you do and your work on Amy's campaign. It's all very much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Nice to meet you, dear. I'll see you guys soon.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Hi.
And Zahra, Abbas, and Leah, Skyler, Dotson have now joined us.
Hey guys, good to be here.
Hi, everyone.
You got 3 board members of Michigan Normal right here.
There you go.
It's almost a
That's
meeting.
Couple more and we can hold a meeting.
Yeah.
It'll be the first one in a while.
We almost have quorum for
Accidentally
the
stumbled into a quorum. Oh no.
the Cannabis Caucus almost has quorum too, guys.
Yeah, we have four board members for the caucus.
Oh no, the Freedom of Information Act. We might have to Open Meetings Act rather. We might have to cancel out.
There you go.
Yeah, our meetings are basically we want to advance cannabis, and a lot of other forces don't. So fuck them and
There you
good
go.
for us.
Speaking of which,
Amen.
can I jump in real quick? Because I didn't want to take away from Latricia's time because I knew it was short. But
Right
the iHemp event, I went to that.
That's right. I was going to ask you too.
I spoke on a panel with Dr. Whitty and Richard Clement, Free the Weed. And I walked through the hall that had all the vendors in it. And I mean, I was impressed. It was small, but I was impressed. It was the right people were coming to that. The people involved in the hemp game were showing up for that. I mean, these were hemp farmers. They didn't look like me. I mean, these were guys in suits that were making money, extraction.
These were hemp farmers. These wearing overalls.
Right. But I walked around the room and I checked out all the different booths. I saw what kinds were there, and then I saw another board member, Tom Levine, was standing there, and I walked up to Tom. Hey, Tom, how you doing? And kind of like as I'm talking to him over my shoulder, I see the word Virtus, and Virtus had a booth there. And it just, I wanted to go over and ask him all kinds of questions, but it wasn't my place, so I didn't. But I'm just fascinated that something so large can happen in an industry and it doesn't take out a player. I mean, they were doing their game. I was listening to what they were saying. You would have
I'm
never
scared that whatever their challenges to the state or whatever's going on, and I'm scared the state's just like kind of passed on this fucking shit. Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting to hear a result of their investigation pretty soon here, but I'm not even sure that's even fucking coming. I think they might have just gotten fucking away with it. I mean,
yeah, they're right. They were a sponsor of the event.
So I mean, truth be told, like I was involved a little bit earlier on, and as were some others, and like when it came to light that that Virtus was kind of in on some of the conversation and sponsoring, I just decided I was going to go in a different direction, not try to do anything to get in the way of the event or anything like that.
No, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I saw they were there. I tipped my hat. I went and did my panel, and I thanked everybody. I'm just shocked that the industry is where it's at today with the players playing how they're playing, and I guess what I'm shocked about isn't what you think either. I'm shocked that the industry is so large that the bad players, to those of us that know better, aren't damaged in large enough numbers. They can continue on because the industry is huge and there are all kinds of people coming and they don't care. They don't know. They don't know. They don't care. And, that just tells me that we will win by the numbers. We just need to get all these rules and regulations in order so that it's doable, because some of this stuff isn't.
Let me just explain for our Apple television and Roku television viewers who may not be familiar with what is going on in Michigan. Viridis is a testing laboratory who was hit by what we thought was the nation's largest cannabis recall last year through the Marijuana Regulatory Agency. And at this particular time, although some of the recall was lifted, most of the products that were recalled had to be retested for potency and for contaminants. So it's been quite a big scandal. A lot of companies were affected, but Viridis is notorious here in Michigan for, let's just say, delivering higher THC numbers consistently than any other lab. And during court testimony, the Cannabis Regulatory Agency testified that oftentimes, if cannabis failed for molds or microbials, someone would retest it with Viridis without remediation, and it would magically test positive
in a shorter window of time than it should take.
So it's a real symbol. When we talk about that, it's a real symbol for the dysfunction and the broken nature of the system of cannabis regulation here in the state of Michigan, which is why their presence at a large conference like that was rather shocking to those who were there.
And the operators have a history in previous profession of skewing science in order to achieve particular outcomes.
Worse
So
than
the
that.
operators,
The operators are cops.
Yeah.
they're
Charmie was around.
I cannot believe that Gregory Michaud.
Michart, it's pronounced.
Oh, like a shart?
Yes.
That's
Okay.
Jamie's
Thank you.
little
Thank you.
joke. Jamie's
So,
joke.
it's hard for me to believe that Gregory Michaud left the Michigan State Police, where he headed up 3 or 4 of the largest crime labs, like tested the pot that the cops stole from state-sanctioned medical marijuana patients and caregivers during those early days. Because remember, after we passed the Medical Act in 2008, the cops lost their freaking minds because we could grow 72 plants. We wrote that shit. We don't have to ask the legislature. So you guys wrote that stuff. And then the cops lost their minds. So the Attorney General at the time, Bill Schuette, kind of sounds like Sharp, doesn't it? Bill Schuette executed a campaign statewide where they just raided people. Jamie, you and I were in the Ypsilanti courtroom at some point when our phones started going off, when they started in Oakland County. But right after the Medical Marijuana Act was passed, they fought so hard against it before it was passed, overwhelmingly in every of the 83 counties in Michigan. And then they just couldn't stand it. So they executed sweeps and they raided families and they kicked in doors and they terrified people with no criminal intent, zero criminal intent, who thought they were following the law. And then they took those cases and they just cherry picked them, because the judges would look at it and say, this is legal now, and dismiss it. And then they would cherry pick the cases that they wanted to challenge the protections provided in the act. Because when you're protected by the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, you are not subject to forfeiture. And they lost their minds. They could not stand it. At that time, the cops didn't have to write down what they took. Let me just say that to you again. At that time, the cops, there were no reporting requirements for civil asset forfeiture. They did not have to write down what they took. So they just stole and terrorized people. And they took those cases and they worked them up until they made life-saving concentrates illegal, the kind of concentrates that Jim Power's son needed to live. They made dispensaries illegal, even though we hadn't defined dispensaries. And they just fought and went at us again and again and again until we had to pass Prop 1. We had to stop the raids and stop these guys. And I am stunned. I'm sorry to shout like this already, Jesus God, but I'm just stunned that you are still fighting these people. They will not give up. No. It's amazing. Like the whole judges aren't doctors thing, this whole caregiver package. Didn't you guys just beat back a caregiver package, or is this a new?
Same package.
It's the same one.
Package.
Re-energizing it, coming in from the Senate. You know.
Yeah. So it's not like dead. Yeah, it still could come back, and it looks like they're trying to make it come back.
And of course, we all are, most of us here are familiar with the lame duck saving throw that these guys sometimes get, where You know, they wait until after the election and they pass all the shit that they couldn't get through during regular session because at that point everybody's already lost their job, so they don't care what they vote on
It's
anymore.
so true.
So I just want to say real quick though. So Joe Brown, who's a very big in the Michigan hemp scene, and I'm not sure if what his point is kind of like supporting Viridis here or talking about something else. So I mean, Viridis does supply a lot of services. They
but
got into the hemp early. It costs a lot of money to put on one of those events. I'm sure that they, wanted to make sure they could help support the cost, so they took their money. There's that kind of side, I guess.
iHemp exists for 4 years now, and Viridis was a sponsor before they had the lab scandal, so they're just continuing a relationship that they had prior to that. So you can talk about all those things. Yep.
Yeah.
No. The man that heads up Viridis,
Right.
the man that Gregory Michaud that heads up Viridis. I mean, somebody send Joe the emails. Send him the emails in his own words, telling the scientists at the Michigan State Police crime labs that we're gonna just pretend we don't understand the difference between cannabis and fake cannabis, so that we can charge people with felonies. Like, this is a fact. This is something that's a verifiable fact that man was responsible.
Joe is saying fuck Viridis. Now it's confirmed, and I'm glad that is his position. I just wasn't sure about what he said.
Thank you, Joe. I mean,
controversy. So he's.
And when this happened, when this Viridis thing happened, I sent all of those emails and those beautiful articles from The Intercept about the Michigan State Crime Lab scandal to all of the reporters that were covering this Viridis issue. Nobody gave a single fuck. I was shocked. None of those reporters cared about that. How can they not care? It's a real answer. It's not rhetorical. How can they not care?
Because then they'd have to admit that there was bad science in the Michigan State Police labs and that thousands and thousands of people were sent to prison and that the media did nothing about it ever.
Because the media is owned by the cops like the legislature.
Yeah, they don't want to look bad. Come on.
Hey, so real quick, Charmie, I know you've definitely have met Zahra over the years, stuff like that.
I have. I'm so glad to see you, Zahra.
Have you met Leah before?
Yeah, how are you?
I have not. I'm great. Thank you. Hi. Hi. I'm pleased to meet you, Adam, as well.
Yeah. Leah's the chair of the Young Dems of Michigan. She's also on the board of the Michigan Cannabis Caucus and other stuff too. She's working on the campaign for Debbie Dingle. She refers to her as Dingle. She's like, I'm working on Dingle's campaign.
Hey, aren't we all?
I do wear a lot of hats, just trying to make a difference. A positive difference, I should say.
So cute.
So Joe was saying that he would
awesome, Joe. Thank you.
Said, don't deal with those dudes.
we have to read that because our audio only podcast listeners on Alexa and Spotify won't be able to know it. Joe Brown writes, I was on the iHemp Expo planning committee. I apologize, didn't know about Viridis's involvement. It would have been a no for us. Of course, Joe represents Coptic Christians for Cannabis and several other organizations in northern Michigan and I guess actually nationally, if you give the guy credit. He really does. So
yeah, there's that doghouse made out of hemp. They made it grow green that Rick participated in. That's been kind of shuffled around. But Joe orchestrated the making of a hemp structure, while before that.
They had it at the event. They had a structure built. At
the doghouse, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was my labor that helped build that doghouse. Yes.
That was cool to see there,
And
was it an actual doghouse, Rick?
Yeah.
It is actually, yes. It's got wooden forms on it. We took the wooden forms off the outside, but on the inside, the forms are still there. It's got a roof that sits on top of it. And yes, it actually is. I think they, correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't they going to give it away at the iHemp Expo to someone who was lucky enough to be able to take it home?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know either, but that would be
I'm
cool.
not sure.
I was standing in front of it, turned around, saw Viridis and left.
So both you guys, Leah and Zahra, and Zahra's chair of the Michigan Cannabis Caucus, as well as being on the board of MiNORML with Rick and Adam, and a national delegate for the party.
I am hearing a rooster.
Probably another long list of stuff.
Sorry.
No, it's awesome. It's actually,
I'm at the farm.
so much better than
and you guys were-
handling
both
the
at the,
wind
uh,
time that we normally have to deal with, right?
A lot of noises. The sheep are going to start yelling at about 7 o'clock, like, where's the oats? They're hilarious. Sorry.
So
Sorry. to
Zahra,
interrupt.
Zahra dipped in a little bit into the lobby day, I think, and then also both you guys were part of the conference too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
Yeah,
Hannah did
I
more
mean,
than me.
Well, we both did a lot. I wasn't able to. We weren't able to get there in time for the lobby day, but once we got there, they said that we didn't actually get any of the meetings. But separate than that, for the caucus, we've been setting up individual meetings with representatives, and we're working on the Senate right now to try to explain our side of why we oppose, the bills 5300, 5302, and 5512. So we got a lot of meetings with like the representatives. So now we're working on the Senate to try to get our side, especially since 5512 has moved to the Senate. So got to see how we can get rid of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the conference was fun though. It was my first time going, and it was really fun. There's like a lot of the women involved in cannabis that we got to spend time with, and that was really cool because I don't get to see them as much. We went to some panels. I mean, I really enjoyed the pediatric panel where we had women who were explaining, what they've done for their children that are pediatric patients. Also, Josie was there, Scogan, to speak about, how she was a pediatric patient herself, and now she's got a child who's a pediatric patient. So it's really cool to listen to like their stories, their advice. I really enjoyed that. When I worked at the dispensary as a bud tender, like what I was interested in was learning, what helps what ailments, and their panel was really kind of diving right into like the measurements and the types of the topicals, the RSO. Like it was pretty cool. I really enjoyed that panel.
Good.
Yeah, that was a really good panel. I really enjoyed that one, and the panel that that I was on that Leah moderated, which was grassroots advocacy, building representation in the Michigan medical cannabis industry. So that one was, we had a lot of different information on that. I also really loved moderating the panel, the Cannabis Law Essentials, understanding the MMA, MMFLA, and MRTA with some of the cannabis attorneys, because we really touched a lot on the bills and how those could affect the community. So that one was, especially since a lot of what we've been doing with the caucus lately is working on eliminating or, putting out our view of those bills and how they would harm the community. So it was nice to hear from the lawyers in regards to that.
Which lawyers were there?
Tom Levine,
I love Tom.
Paul Talinda, I think you say his name, and Will Furtado.
Okay. All right. Right on.
I've heard of Will.
No, it was really
Yes.
cool. I mean, it was nice to hear like their legal perspective on why these bills are not where we need to go, right? And like I feel like it kind of gave us some more pointers to take back to some of the representatives and senators.
Good.
And I mean that that's really what it is. We need to figure out what's going to make them move, right? So like it was nice to hear their perspective and have a little bit more, I would say, like legal backing to our upcoming meetings and arguments.
I think Will may work with Craig Aronoff. I'm not positive about that, but I believe that's who introduced me to him a few weeks ago. So we could find out about that, I guess. But I've seen him and met him briefly before.
But yeah, I mean, it was really cool. Like it was a whole network of people who are all working on various issues from very different backgrounds. One of the things I love about going to this is like we all have different reasons why we got involved. And so like it's nice because like you're in a cannabis bubble, right? But everyone's from totally different walks of life and experiences. And like so it's a really cool, like diverse kind of meshing pot of everybody.
Cool. I'm glad that went down. It did seem like it shaped up to be a pretty good event.
There were a lot of panels, and the day was filled with all kinds of panels.
And Brandy did a lot of work, I know, on some of that, and then couldn't go because she was sick. So
yeah, no, Brandy did a huge amount of the organizing. Yeah.
My car died.
Brandy's who got like. I'm sorry, what was that?
I said my car died on Thursday, and I'm still in the market for a new one, so that's why I wasn't there on Saturday. I had planned.
It wasn't important enough for him to find another way to get there.
Yeah, it's Lansing a walk and a half from Flint.
Wow.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
No, it was great. I'm glad that Brandy reached out to me to include me in it as a moderator, and I was really excited. It was my first time moderating a panel, actually. And it was a panel full of like all these fantastic women that, like I said, are doing totally different things in the cannabis world, but are all like grounded in the same like reason for it, right? And it was really cool to get like Q&A questions from the community about just what do we do and why do we do it.
Yeah, very cool. So, and also recently you and I co-hosted a fundraiser for Jimmy Wilson, who was on this show 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yep. And he's running for a state house representative seat, 32nd district. Amy Carter, as we know, is in the 68th district. These are redrawn districts because of the gerrymandering, bills that, have forced them to redraw them. They're a little more square now. They don't do like these weird, 10 miles, 1 mile wide things that then go across 4 different counties.
It's fucking Michigan.
Yeah.
So,
You guys, listen, I've lived in so many states since I left Michigan. Michigan is out of its freaking mind. The legislature, the cops. Oh my God.
Wait till you hear this one, Charmie. Now they disqualified like half of the field of people running for the Republican Party for the governor's race because they cheated on their petition signatures, and they've determined they're fraudulent for like half their SIGs. So, and they're paying like $20 per signature here. So people are
now there's
cheating.
Now there's a criminal investigation into the signature gatherers,
right?
Who are sitting around tables passing a ballot,
round robin style.
It's my understanding
one line
that they
pass it to you, and I'll take another one and sign one.
Yeah, you're not like you're not supposed to do that.
So they got a hold of the voters poll, right? Or or some sort.
Voters registry, yeah.
And then like just filled in people's information. I mean, many of them were collected, I guess. Yeah. But they can tell that there was a pattern of like similar style.
They could see the handwriting style.
Over so many, you can't just like
I actually
dude, and that's insane because like those are criminal charges for like falsifying that stuff. Like,
but it also throws fuel on the fire for those folks that really don't like our ability to create voter initiated acts.
I know.
They really don't.
Rick, Jen's got you covered.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, right. That Mini Cooper, right?
Mini Cooper.
That sounds. Yeah. Yeah, I'm too big for a Mini Cooper, too small for a Trailblazer. But that's how I like to think of myself.
There's a bumper sticker
on the actual report from the Bureau of Elections that shows pictures of the different petitions that were put out there, and they're identical. Some of them are filled out in exactly the same handwriting, line after line after line.
Now, it's like they didn't even put enough effort into cheating.
Everyone on
that's what they accused us of.
For some of them, they put in the address and didn't put in the signature.
Right.
That's insane. So my day job is field director for Congresswoman Dingell, and my whole life was getting these petitions together for her. And like, I just can't comprehend someone being like, "Oh, I'll just fill it all in myself. No one's gonna catch me," and then doing a poor job of it too. Like, I get so much anxiety turning in those signatures. Like, did I miss one? Was one not correct? And they're just like, la 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 la. What is this shit?
Yeah, and I mean, I did it as a volunteer for some of them, and I was that worried. And it's like, I don't know how they did that. Like,
but when you turn those into the state, that means at some point you didn't even bother to check them. You brought them in from the signature gatherers. You didn't even bother to have them verified. We spent at MI Legalize $1 or more per signature just for verification, just for validation, to make sure that when we submitted to the state, as large a percentage were current and validated as possible. But these guys clearly didn't give a shit. They didn't even verify before giving it to the Secretary of State. You would think internally they would catch that if they were playing the game with their eyes open. It's a terrible scandal. Charmie, that's Michigan right there, man.
And it's so bizarre because that's what they used to accuse us of all the time.
Right.
Oh, you're just cheating, It's like,
I'll
tell you what, the older I get, the clearer it becomes that every time I accuse somebody of something, it's really me.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a huge shakeup this week. Like, a lot of the people in the political realm are really talking about it because, like, it's changed a lot of people's predictions and, like, field plans and just, like, it's crazy. Like,
right. The race leaders are gone.
Right. Yeah, as long as this holds up, then we're looking at Tracy Dixon and that crazy West Bloomfield Kevin Rinke as opponents in the Republican Party to Gretchen Whitmer, and the two leaguers, Perry Johnson and Jim Craig, both of them gone because of insufficient signatures. But this is going to be a lawsuit. Everybody's going to sue to stay on the ballot.
Mhm.
So, but correct me if I'm wrong, Leah. You know this. I know because of your day job. The latest date you can have your name added to the ballot. This would have to be resolved by courts prior to July 7th, something like that. July 8th.
It would have to be a very fast turnaround, because we're almost in the month of June now. So you're looking at needing a decision within like a month and a week's time frame in order to get those ballots. And like the sample ballots get sent out to people. So I'm a precinct delegate. So like I get a sample ballot sent to me because I'm running for precinct delegate again. Hey, if you live in Ward 3 in Ipsy, I'll be on your ballot. But like you get a sample ballot mailed to you. So they need to be on there before those sample ballots go out. Which is usually in early July. So like, yeah, you're looking at a month to make a decision. And like, of course, everyone's going to sue. But like, if you didn't have the right signatures, if you didn't file the right things, like it's invalid. That you can whine and cry as much as you want, but this is the reality.
Right. And so it turns out that naturally there's a challenge process here in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Once those are turned in, everyone can take a look at those. There's an open period where you can actually look at other people's petitions and then challenge whether or not you think they're valid. And that actually happened. Mark Brewer, here kind of famous in Michigan Democratic politics, was one of those people that challenged that on behalf of his organization. And when they discovered it, what they eventually did was say, all right, we have identified 36 petitioners whose efforts are so clearly fraudulent. We're just going to decide that none of their signatures are valid on any campaign for anything they collected. Now, the candidates are like, wait a second. Now, maybe he did everything fine on my campaign, even if he screwed up on that other campaign. You have to still look at those and then decide whether they're valid or not. And that'll be the basis of the legal challenge, whether or not the elections board can just, categorically deny some particular petitioner all of their petitions, or whether they still have to verify each individual signature. Now, Leah, that's your understanding of the situation, right?
Yeah, and I mean, part of me says like they collected the signatures, verified the signatures, right? Because like as you all know on this call, like you collected those signatures. That's a lot of work. Please check my work. But like also at the same time, like if there's a bad actor, there's a bad actor. I think I would tell them they need to look at all the signatures because just my heart says please check them, right? But like I think that they're just going to be able to say that this was enough of an occurrence that it is what it is.
The report that Rick talks about where the state put out copies of these petitions, I mean, the layman can tell you that this is
right. Like this is really clear, right? Like this is not like a
open and shut. The question is, what's the state going to do about it? Mm-hmm. Are they going to actually investigate like they're claiming? Is there going to be a criminal investigation, and are people going to get, convicted for this? And can people be banned? As Rick talked about?
Once somebody's kicked off of the race and those signatures didn't work, how much liability do they have for even attempting that, I guess, fraudulent activity? How much do they go after them still?
I mean, so it really depends. Like, election integrity is a huge conversation right now, right? Like, it's really a huge debate. So, like, if you have this instance of just massive fraud, I can't imagine they're not going to pursue it. It's a top talking point for a lot of people right now is this whole, do we have trust in our elections? Do we have trust in our systems? And so like if a bunch of people committed a bunch of fraud on this part of the process and system, they're going to look really bad, I think, if they don't pursue something.
Well, and I wonder how high it'll go because, what they do is they hire someone who says, I can get you the signatures. They don't say, I can get you signatures by playing round robin, and here's how we're going to do it.
Well, some places who collect signatures have an extra service where they also verify them against the voter roll.
And some of these were dead people. Some of them had moved and not validated their registration. Here's the thing. When I mentioned this before, when we were paying, $2, $3, $5 a signature with MI legalized in 2016 and again in 2018, we paid over $1, I think, to validate each and every signature because we needed to do that. And when the signature game now, by the way, as it was explained in the news, California has 40 different ballot proposals running right now. So all the normal signature gathering squads are out where the real money is, which is in Cali. So it's difficult to come by manpower here in the state. So you have people that may not be as familiar with the game, and they may not have the same degree of integrity as some of the existing long-term petitioning squads are. But the price went up to sometimes $20 per signature. That's 4 times what we paid before, and we thought we were getting raped at $5 a signature. So the fact is that the incentive to cheat is huge when that kind of money is involved. We're talking about in one campaign, 10,000 signatures were faked. If you were paid $20 per sig and 10,000 of them were fake, that's $200,000. That's an incentive to cheat, especially for someone who knows his company is not validating signatures because they've been told that by campaign management.
Yeah, it's an incentive for the people paying 20 to make sure that that it's based upon validated signatures.
Yeah, well, Perry Johnson's self-funding his campaign, so every dollar that he spends validating a signature is literally $1 he doesn't spend putting new koi in his font or something like that. Buying a new flag for his yacht, whatever he does. But the reality of go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you're completely right. They're not people who know the rules of the district. So like when I was collecting for Congresswoman Dingell in Ann Arbor, I kept running into the one fair wage people a lot. And I would ask them, oh, well, can you sign Miss Dingell's? And they're nowhere near from this area. A lot of them are from Ohio. And then I met some people who are, I'm allowed to say which ballots are bad on here, right? So like, you guys don't care, right? So the Let Michigan Kids Learn is a terrible, horrible ballot initiative that is completely backed by Betsy DeVos. And it's literally
some of us here are in support of it, so be a little sensitive.
No, we are not.
Oh, okay, Jamie. Okay. And so like there's a couple problems here. Is like they're flying in people from everywhere to lead their canvas launches. And so the people don't know the community. They don't really know the rules. They've just been told, hey, go get signatures. And those people are leading campaign teams. And so like there's a huge shortage for like other campaigns to get, like door knockers and canvassers, because all these ballot initiatives here are already taking all the good people, and then they need more people, so they're flying in people now and bringing them into the state. So like it's really there's a lot, and most of the Democratic focus is going to the reproductive freedoms ballot initiative. So most of your people who know what they're doing, they're with that ballot or they're with the promote the vote ballot. Those are the two big ones that like how people are going to.
And this is one of the reasons why the 180-day rule needs to be destroyed, because here in Michigan, we have a 180-day rule where all your petition signatures that you submit for one of these ballot initiatives has to be collected within the last 6 months. And we fought that in 2016 with MI Legalized, thinking it was unconstitutional. It should be much longer. You wouldn't have any of this pressure. You wouldn't have all these financial issues if you put it to a 12-month collecting process instead of 6. Jamie, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I totally forgot what I was going to say.
Well, because I was brilliant, and that happens a lot.
The need for it to be said was waned. So
no, but the fact is, we talked about a lot of things today that are evidence of a broken electrical system here in Michigan. But Trump still did not win here in 2020. Okay,
no, that did not happen.
So what this boils down to, by the way, James Craig almost said this verbatim, but he sort of intimated it in a conversation, I think, in the Detroit News, that this looks like Republican on Republican fuckery. If it gets all the way down to the bottom of it, this is Trump versus anti-Trump people in the Republican Party.
Yes. There's a huge divide right now.
My thing is always go with human greed as as an explanation for everything you see. So as far as I'm concerned, $200,000 in fraudulent signatures is enough of an incentive for a couple of chuckleheads to get together and do a round robin style, petition signing scheme. But if it is beyond that, this is absolutely Republican on Republican violence.
Well, that happened at the convention anyway, right? With the
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is we actually saw a lot of division at the Republican convention, and even like if you go on like Twitter and like just start looking at different candidates, because part of my job is op-ed stuff, right, and looking at who we're running against, and you look and there's a lot of division between like Trump endorsed MAGA candidates and then like you're more like conservative regular Republicans. And like these guys over here are not wanting to back these really MAGA endorsed people, but they are the ones that are inciting like the crazies, right? Like the intense things, the things that we've seen that has been just horrible policy and horrible, just bigoted, mean, awful stuff, right? And there's another section of the party that's saying, hey, we're not really that. Let's just like get some legislation and stuff. And like they want to hold control and they don't want the MAGAs to come in. And so there is some fighting, and we saw it kind of play out. They did, I think, 2 or 3 votes to confirm their AG at their convention. And it, you know, there's also obviously fractures in the Democratic Party. We're all aware, but it was like done twice at least. Yeah.
Because they already
reached the majority.
Yeah, because they
results.
couldn't reach consent.
Okay.
Yeah, they couldn't reach consent. So I mean, like there's a lot of division there, and like, you know, losing their top ticket people, like I don't know, like this is gonna be a really interesting year for the Republican Party, especially the Michigan GOP. Like
typically these
Tom
midterm
Leonard
elections
was knocked out, who was a formidable challenger to Dana Nessel. Not that Dana has to campaign and go through a good election and her process and everything, but her chances.
Oh, like that she'll campaign, but it was probably the better of the options for us out of our AG candidates we could have ended up running against. Definitely. And obviously,
midterm elections typically favor the party not in power in Washington. So that would typically indicate a Republican sweep, which is with the Go Brandon stuff and all of the anti-gas pricing things we've seen lately, you would think that the president's approval rating would be down, but actually it's up recently. And part of it is because no one trusts the Republican Party right now. Being an independent has never been more popular than right now, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a lot of... Go, Zahra.
No, I think most people are really independents, but it's like to be able to do anything, you have to be within these two parties until we change that system.
Yeah. Yep. You can vote with your heart, but if you want to get something done, you have to have a party affiliation, right?
And I think especially for the younger generation, a lot of the work we do, you see that there is a lot of people who don't identify, we're talking about the fracturing within the Republican Party. We have that within the Democratic Party, except they know how to work together better too, because we don't have such bad ideologies or whatever within our party. But really, a lot of people, they don't identify as Democrat or Republican. But once again, until we change the two-party system, that's the only way you're going to get anybody elected or get anything done.
Yeah, well, we have some states where in order to vote in a primary, you must be registered with the party. Luckily, Michigan's an open primary state, so you can choose whatever you want. But there are states that you have to literally pick a party in order to vote.
So what's
and we
go ahead, Zahra.
Well, I mean, and once again, we do have that, for our general elections, but once again, to get the attorney general and some of the others on the ballot, you have to work within the party itself.
Yeah. Just like with our Supreme Court candidates this year, they get elected through a party endorsement convention with the AG.
Yeah. Which,
that's how we beat out Miles Jr., 4 years ago.
Yeah, no, that's how we got rid of Pat.
Really, when you talk about passing laws in Michigan, you really do have to have some kind of a party affiliation when you're working with the legislature. There's just no pathway for independents to be able to do things like become committee chairs. Those are all controlled by the different ones. The Senate has been in Republican control in Michigan for 35, 40 years.
Forever.
We've not had a Democratic Senate in 35 or 40 years here in Michigan. So all of the bad shit that you say about our state, blame the Republicans for that, because they've been the one that have the foot on the throat of the voice that we whenever we try and fix something, they stop us.
Oh yeah, not having the majority. Sorry, Jamie, go ahead.
Just hoping that the new districts help to create a a better composition of lawmakers, and whether they're Republican or not, if they have to be accountable to the constituency, that would help out, at least in some
Yeah.
decisions. They don't have
I
to
mean,
care right now what they do because they know they're going to get back in again.
I mean, look, in Michigan, you see from the presidential elections, we mainly, end up Democrat. But like our legislator has, for such a long time, at least the Senate, been Republican, and that's because of the gerrymandering. And even, when you have the majority to one side because of the gerrymandering, that's the way it's going to happen. So hopefully, I think, within the next 10 years, I mean, it's, right now we'll start seeing a difference. But really, I think it's going to take a couple cycles for us to really see how much, whether Democrat or we lean. These next couple elections are going to be really important.
Well, and it's
About
not
the new
unrealistic this year. Yeah, so everyone's running in a brand new seat this year, basically. There are no real incumbents. Like, you can be an incumbent because you've served in Lansing, but you haven't served in that district. So, like, everyone's got fair game, basically. It's really interesting because a lot of people still have like 60% of their old district, but then they have like 40% brand new district, a variety of those mashups. That's what my district for Miss Dingle is about 60% old, 40% new. So like, who knows, right? You're learning a whole new community. As far as like our chances in the House, we won a special election seat for the Democrats recently. So we now need 3 seats in the House. Is it doable? Like, I want to say yes. There's a lot of targeted seats from the party this year. There's a lot of people engaged. The one campaign, which is their coordinated campaign throughout the state, has been more engaged earlier than we've ever seen it. But we're going to have to fight like hell in those handful of districts to win those seats. And, like Rick said earlier, historically, usually the seat that's in power in DC doesn't do great in the midterms. So like, it could still be a toss-up. It really could. But like, some of these seats are very winnable. We just need people on the ground.
And once again, especially with all, like, it doesn't matter like how much you favor him or the work that he's done. A lot of like the stuff that's been talked about, like Biden and the new administration, is a lot of the stuff that people are worried about, as gas prices, and they're putting the blame on the administration, and that's gonna, that's gonna affect like the local election or the state elections as well.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I mean, and the
Somebody
Senate,
should tell
I
him
think
to lower the gas prices before the election.
Doesn't he have that magic dial? He just spins it a little bit.
Yeah, it's right there,
let's go
right
about
on his desk.
374 today. That's Biden's desk right there.
How much can I piss people off today? Oops, did I hit 6? Right? That's totally what it is. The dial, right? Like,
I mean, if we really, once again, I mean, this is a whole nother subject, but if we really want to do something with the gas prices and like the environment, we got to start utilizing hemp for a lot more things.
Mm-hmm.
But
no, and that's a huge thing. It's like we need to move our whole cultural shift at some point.
There's a big anti-solar move in Michigan right now too, and that's counterproductive to what we're trying to achieve as far as energy independence. I will say that I saw a headline on Facebook the other day. We have a 10-week supply of wheat, and then after that, we're all going to be kind of bumming for some foodstuffs that typically would involve that. So at this particular point, I think as we look at 2022 going further down the road, there are probably some other unavoidable calamities that are going to happen between now and then, which might make baby food shortage not seem like such a huge thing, right? Mm-hmm. We have such a short memory as voters in America that if it didn't happen the last couple of weeks, it doesn't really affect what we're going to do. But there might be, by the end of the year, there might be some really tough issues.
Well, and we also have to address the elephant in the room that COVID's not totally gone. So who knows what COVID's going to look like come November? Will that affect people coming out to vote in November? I don't know. Did it affect people last year? Luckily in Michigan, we have good absentee stuff. So like maybe we'll just see a lot of absentees again. So that, there's a lot that can happen between, May 24th and November, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that could go down. Do I feel like our party's in a good position? I do feel like we're positioned well, but I think people need to realize that there's a lot at stake because, I know Roe v. Wade is not like a cannabis thing, right? But like if we repeal Roe v. Wade, how many other federal decisions can we repeal? That means if we finally get legalization passed, right, federally, they could just, you know, a couple of years later decide, nah, we don't like that ruling anymore. So like we need to get people aware of how much can get undone in this election and how much we need our Lansing legislature to fight for state laws that we can stand behind when federal might come down on our heads.
Yeah, and this election, I mean, especially for Michigan with all the gerrymandering, you know, now that we ended gerrymandering and, you know, the new districts, this is really going to be where, you know, a few votes will make a difference. You know, for the for the presidential election, I know a lot of it is determined by the Electoral College and like so many things, but really for a lot of the local elections and you know, state elections, a few votes will make a difference in the districts. So it's really important.
Zahra, can you explain for me briefly, because I've been out of state for a while now. Can you explain to me, you just said we ended gerrymandering. Did you just say that? Will you explain what's happened to me, please? I'm unfamiliar.
Yeah, so gerrymandering, and Leah might be able to explain this a lot more, but gerrymandering is like the unfair drawing of districts.
I know what gerrymandering is. What happened?
In 2018, same time MI legalized.
So, yeah, 2018. So the ballot initiative to end gerrymandering. So what happened is that there became an 11-people commission. So from each party you had from the Democrat, Republican, and then people who didn't identify with either party. And they're the ones that are now in charge of drawing the districts. So there's no more of like, you know, those oddly shaped districts that will help a state favor one party over another. So like, this is why, I mean, once again, like Michigan, you can tell from a lot of our elections that we generally are more Democrat leaning. But the reason like we do have a lot of Republicans and we sometimes, you know, go Republican is because of the gerrymandering and the way our districts were drawn. You know, especially with the congressional districts. But especially this year, this is going to affect like ending the gerrymandering. It's not only affecting the, you know, congressional districts. There's going to be a lot of changes in the local politics in the Senate and the House.
A lot. So like I said, you have state senators and state representatives who have served in office for, you know, 4 years who have never had these communities in their district. So like they're learning whole new districts while running a campaign at the same time. And it's exciting for a lot of them because like it's something new, right? But like now they have to figure out what are the key issues here, and they have to be campaigning on those while campaigning on the old district at the same time. So there's a lot of like moving parts of hybrid stuff. It's been fun coming from a congressional campaign, but like it is a new challenge. And you know, we did develop some more rural Republican conservative areas in Miss Dingle's district with Western Washtenaw, but we also got some Democrats who have been underneath the Republican forever who are ready to hit the ground running to make sure that they have Miss Dingle. So like there's some people who are excited because they're going to get real representation because they have just been so gerrymandered into something for so long where they knew there wasn't a shot. Now they have a shot. And so people are excited, and I'm hoping that we see more volunteerism come out of that.
Yeah, and then the other thing that's going to affect, you know, Michigan moving forward is the fact that we lost a congressional seat.
Yes.
So that's another thing you know, I mean, less representation in DC because there's less people, but at the same time that also affected the districts and who won and how whether we're going to be majority Democrat or Republican or what.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, no, it's a really, like, if you're a political nerd, like, this is a fascinating election year, and the last 2 years watching the whole process has been fascinating. Like,
yeah, it's a lot to learn.
We thought it could be more entertaining than the Trump presidency, but, you know, this year has been with scandals and Madison Cawthorn accusing everybody of having orgies with cocaine, and, you know, I guess he wasn't invited, and so he got angry and tried to out him. You know, all of these different crazy things that we've seen. Go ahead.
He's a dark. He warned of the dark MAGA, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
He lost. John.
Is that like the dark Batman or Superman?
I mean, you thought MAGA wasn't dark, right? Ooh, so
right.
They were.
I don't know. I think like that we're really polarized, but like the issues are very clear this year. I think of where people stand on them. You know, I was talking to a friend who's running as a Republican, and he was talking about even some conservatives are concerned about, Republican voters are concerned about Roe v. Wade, and they may not go with those crazy MAGAs who are saying, you know, bans on everything. So like you might see some drop off from some of the Republican districts where you only have those MAGA candidates. People might just not come out and vote because they are kind of tired of MAGA. But they won't vote for Democrats. But if they want to, you know, stay home and give me some more votes, that's okay too.
It used to be the Republican Party was all about economic theory and policies about spending and everything. Now it's become all about social issues and you know, critical race theory and don't say gay and all of the different things that they've embraced. Economics doesn't even seem to be part of it any longer. So some of those people who have more allegiance to their femininity than they do to their party might say, hey, you're fucking with my body, dude. You know, and if this is the party that's going to support that, I can't stand with you any longer. I think there's a great number of ex-Republicans right now, which really should be a great opportunity for the Democratic Party itself.
Yeah.
You know, some of them definitely, maybe for religious reasons or whatever, you know, don't like the idea of abortion, but reaching deeper into the privacy issues that are affected by the whole discussion. I don't think that oftentimes they would, especially the more libertarian or more truly like, you know, righteous Republican kind of thinkers would want that kind of intrusion in their personal lives.
Yeah,
You know?
so again, you're seeing that divide in ideology within the party. You really are. And then like something that Democrats are telling people is like, if Roe v. Wade falls, there's a chance that like gay marriage can fall. And there's a chance that everything else can fall. It's a can of worms. And so a lot of the messaging from the Democrats right now is trying to get people to understand that like this is a real threat and Roe v. Wade is most likely going to fall. So like I think you're going to see a huge uptake in volunteers from the Democratic side when that court case comes down. And our hope is that they just, instead of sitting at their house yelling at the TV, they decide to get engaged in a campaign or in the MDP or, you know, one of our social justice issues, right? That they decide this is my moment to do something different. I hope we don't see a bunch of couch activists, because if we get that this year, we're in trouble.
I remember.
And we're going to see some of that. Sorry, Rick, go ahead.
No, you please, because I talk a lot.
No, I think we are still going to see. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who are just, you know, especially with the last few elections, they're just sick of the party, sick of like, you know, just voting in general. And, but I think you know, especially with the younger generation, a lot of the stuff that's happened in the last few years has empowered a lot of people to, you know, get up and start doing something, even if it's not in the best way, or if it's not like really where I want to be, at least I'm starting that change. And I tell people, if we want to change the two-party system and get rid of the two-party system, you're going to have to work within the two-party system until we have enough to change it. Yeah. I mean, hopefully we'll be done with that one day, but it's going to take some time.
Yeah, and that's why I love our caucuses that we're a part of, like Cannabis and Young Dems, because it's a really inclusive group where, like, you know, you can come with kind of any background and fit in that organization. And that's what we need our party to be more of, is a community sense. And, you know, that's a lot of what Zahra and I are trying to create in our roles in the party, because we want people to have somewhere that they're comfortable coming to and feeling like they belong in this movement.
You know, in 2010, when they cracked down on dispensaries and really started to work hard against patients and caregivers, we put thousands of people in Lansing. When they started killing African-American men, you know, we saw the Black Lives Matter movement rise. When they continue to put pressure on us, what we do is our people rise up. And in this particular instance, when Roe falls, I think a ton of people are going to rise up.
Oh yeah.
You know, people want to cheer for this symbolic victory that they're going to achieve, but what it's really going to do is mobilize the forces that are going to work against them in the future. And I can't tell you how many people now are involved in activism because they got cannabis in their blood, and they decided to join
because Trump.
Trump made a huge increase. I was talking to some Michigan United organizers, and they said, you know, after that 2016 election, as soon as he got that president-elect title, they watched their volunteer roster go up, because people were like,
that women's march.
The women's march, yeah. There's my sign from the women's march, a women's places in the resistance. Yeah, that's from the 2018 or the 2016
I agree.
2017 marches.
When Roe is official, like it's announced, like this is what the Supreme Court said.
Yeah, I've spoken to other like prosecutors, some people in the AG's office. Everyone feels that like it's gonna fall, And issues, I think, coming back to what you said, Rick, people are involved in activism because of cannabis. People are involved in activism because of environmentalism. People are more about the issues today than necessarily like, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican. It's really about the issue. And like Zahra was saying, is right now the issues that matter the most to us, really, we've got to work within the Democratic Party. But you're going to have the reproductive freedom rights on the ballot this year. You've got decriminalized nature in hopefully on the ballot, right? And then you've got promote the vote on the ballot. These are issues that are going to drive people out, and they're going to drive Democrats out. And Democrats are going to also turn out to vote down the Betsy DeVos stuff. So I think that's another thing that's going in our favor this year is we do have some good issues on the ballot.
Yeah.
The more heinous the threat is, the more likely our people are to show up and try and address it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, and that's also always a good opportunity to get people involved, that haven't been involved is an issue. I mean, that's literally how I became involved in politics. I mean, I always voted, but it was really because of cannabis that made me, become politically involved.
Yeah. I started showing up to shut down pipelines. That was my thing.
Yep. Way back in high school with Michael Moore right in Flint here, protesting Nicaraguan death squads with the People in Solidarity with Latin America group. When I was active in high school, and that's when I started. So when you get it in your blood, then stay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, before that, the only political thing, but because I viewed it as a human rights issue, even though it's very political, is the issue of Palestine. That was the only thing, I really paid attention to. But then after cannabis, that became getting Dana Nessel on the ballot. So that got me into the party, and I've been trapped since then.
And then I dragged her into Young Dems, and then she was sucked all the way in, and now she's a DNC delegate. But no, I mean, really, it could be a good year. We've got some great candidates for state house and state senate that the Cannabis Caucus endorsed that we're going to put efforts behind. We talked about Jimmy Wilson, super pro cannabis guy, but also a really big labor guy, a really big environmental guy. So just right on the issues, And it is nice when they're right on all of them, but we've got some people that really want to make cannabis a priority, like Katie Beth, who's running for state senate. She's another one that this is one of her issues that got her involved in politics. And it's cool. We have a chance to support these candidates and at the least have some really good conversations in some different communities that maybe she's from Monroe. Who knows when we're gonna get good stuff going in Monroe on some of these progressive issues, but we have an opportunity to go hit some doors and have those conversations and get people engaged on the issues that matter. So I'm really excited for a lot of these people that we've got the opportunity to back. And if we can get them in Lansing, we're going to have a really nice Lansing for us to work with, have some allies that, we've supported who have that relationship with us. And some of them returning, like Alex Garza and Kevin Coleman, people that we've worked with before. But some new blood in there that really is gung-ho for some different stuff. That's what we need.
It's important
Can I
to have
ask you,
control.
Leah? I have a question for you. When you say cannabis issues, what does that mean exactly? Because when I was working in cannabis in Michigan, this was all about law enforcement and cannabis. This was about people who got involved in cannabis because they went to jail and friends I knew went to jail. And now I understand and see that there is a business interest in cannabis now as well. It's no longer just advocacy. This is business. So when you say that this candidate is cannabis, positive, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, I mean, so I think cannabis issues is kind of an encompassing term, but in this specific instance, we're talking a lot about patient rights, caregiver rights, are specific things that he's fought for in the township where he's a trustee. So speaking out about really bad ordinances is a really big thing that's come up lately. So you see local communities that are trying to create ordinances that are much more restrictive and suffocating than what the state law says, and you have boards just doing that because they don't want it. Exactly. So, and that's where Jimmy says that is Jimmy's voice comes up and goes, hey, this has already been decided by the voters, so why are we having this conversation, right? So I mean, specifically for him, that would be it. But I would say in general, a lot of the focus that I see from these candidates is the patient caregiver stuff, making sure that they're not excluded. because we have these huge monopolies, big businesses coming in. We see these laws that are trying to strip away their rights. So like that's really a key focus for a lot of them right now. But also a lot of them are looking at social equity with the businesses. So like Jimmy comes from the township. He would love to see the township opt in and have medical marijuana, recreational marijuana. So like with that comes him implementing a social equity program, right? So like that would be another conversation I see a lot coming up.
From which township
like social,
does he
Ypsilanti
come?
Township. Ypsilanti.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ypsilanti Township.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jamie's favorite place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Thank
mean,
you so much, Leah. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
information.
definitely.
Thank you.
I mean, like and it depends on your community, right? But like I would say in general, that's kind of some of what I've been hearing the most from people and what I would say we've worked with the most. But like Zahra can tell you a little more specific about like Sitting Ledge because she's been taking those meetings.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, legalization just got us so far, but like right now, it's really about undoing all the, laws and policies that were there during the time when we didn't have legalization, about freeing the prisoners, about, setting what's right and making sure that everybody has equal and equitable access to cannabis in safe methods and able to grow. I mean, there's, legalization opened the door, but there's still a lot that needs to be done. And that's a lot of the stuff that we do work on with the Cannabis Caucus and making sure that any, legislation that goes forth has the input from the cannabis community because this is who it's going to affect. That's one of the big issues with these laws. Not only are they harmful, but they were done without any input from any of the cannabis organizations, from anybody from the cannabis community. They just want to come and, throw it on top of our heads and say, this is for your safety, when it really isn't. And none of it is really safety.
So Steve Linder did not seek out what Rick Thompson thought about the legislation package before having
to his detriment. To his detriment.
But I mean, so one of the questions we asked in our endorsement packet for Cannabis Caucus was about that. It was like, would you have a working group? How would you go about legislating cannabis issues? And what we really wanted to see from legislatures was them telling us like, hell yeah, we're going to give you a seat at the table. We're going to come to you guys. We're going to ask you guys, hey, is this bill good? Is this bill shit? What do I do with this bill? Who do I need to talk to? If it's a hemp bill, who do we send them to? If it's a very legal legislative, who's our attorney and lawyer we send them to, right? So like we were very intentional in our packet asking them about their relationship with these bills, because this is a huge problem, is we're fighting all of them because we weren't at the table in the first place.
And I hope to see, this is something I would hope you would consider at the Cannabis Caucus, is while you're forward looking, which is beautiful, it's also critical to be, look back, reach back into the criminal justice system and start to undo all the things, just like Zahra said, that were not fixed with legalization. Somebody needs to go at CPS. There are like there's just a field of ways that we're
there's like opening the health code for stuff.
That's one of the things that like descheduling at a statewide level helps out with.
Right. Or like, you think about Jaden's bill that's opening back up some of the codes to make sure that, pediatric patients can access their medicine at school. Right now, they still legally can't do that, but cannabis is legal and it's a medicine. Why are we doing that, right?
Yeah,
so like, we're working
code.
on it. Yeah, exactly.
For
anybody that doesn't know, for pediatric patients, even if they have a medical card and, need to take their cannabis during, school time, they have to be taken off school property by their parents during the day.
1,000
to be
feet
able to
off
given,
school
yeah,
property.
to be able to be given oil or however they take their cannabis.
That's the rule.
Legally how it is.
The parent can even get out and go do that regularly.
And you can't have
exactly.
cannabis 1,000 feet from the school. There are rules in place. We must follow them.
So what we're working with,
just to like for a lot of people that don't know, I've known some people because their kids utilize cannabis for epilepsy and they have to take it throughout the day. They ended up having to take them out of school because of that law, because it's like, okay, you were okay giving the anti-seizure meds, the pharmaceutical, by the school nurse or whoever within the school to administer it, but the cannabis oil, that's not allowed. So that's a lot of what Jaden's law would take care of. And we need to continue pushing for
more
people
reforms
to
like that.
That would actually help and expand the system rather than try to push us or take us back.
Yeah.
Yep.
And to touch on your
they don't
point
get the
more
momentum.
about
The shitty bills get the momentum.
Yeah. And to touch more on your point about like undoing like specific criminal justice stuff, we do a lot of like clemency work. So like we have been begging for over 2 years now to get a meeting with the governor, and we're trying to do it through multiple avenues. But we've met with the attorney general to look at clemency cases, and we have a really close working relationship with a couple prosecutors like Ellie Savitt in Washtenaw and Carol Seaman in Ingham, who we do expungement fairs with, and we like make sure that we're like doing stuff like that to get physical access into the community to right a lot of these wrongs that have been done.
The drug war was a squid with a million tentacles, a squid made of shit. So yes.
Stop it.
Shit squid.
Shit
Yeah.
squid. Yes.
And we're going to be undoing this.
Gotta hunt them all down.
And we're going to be undoing this bullshit for a long time. I mean, we
Yeah,
just
that's why I'm
are.
so glad to see you on the screen right now, sister. Trust me. Both of you. It's so beautiful for me to see young women in these leadership positions like this. I really, it gives me a lot of hope.
Thanks. We just try to make it a little better. But I mean, no,
a lot of work. It requires. It's a lot of work, and it requires a lot of weed.
Yeah. It does. It really does. I tell everybody I don't know how I can't do campaigns without cannabis and coffee. That's my thing. Cannabis and coffee. I can't do campaigns
and add chocolate. Add chocolate.
Yeah, chocolate too. That's a good one.
Yeah, the three C's of the campaign world.
3 C's of the campaign world: cannabis, chocolate, coffee.
There's really 4 C's, but one of them isn't that popular to discuss.
Wow.
Jamie.
Let's move forward from that.
Thank you, Rick.
That's the biggest smile Jamie's had all day long.
Oh.
His own joke. That's
Let's
great.
talk about food sovereignty, because Rick, I saw that same article about the impending food shortage. And the reason you're hearing a rooster outside my window right now is because I'm on a 100-acre organic farm in Minnesota, the top of Minnesota, living again with my adopted family, where we plant, tend to, harvest, process, and then eat almost all of our own food. I've lost 20 pounds since I got here, eating like this, just eating it all up. And I'm here to tell you that I know it's springtime there. It's not that difficult to get seeds, put them in dirt, stick them in a window, put them on the balcony. If you're in an apartment, you can grow an astronomical amount of food in a tiny bit of space, just like with your cannabis. Y'all are growing weed in there. I know you are. You can grow some freaking tomatoes, okay? And food sovereignty is really like, you know, we need cannabis. I'm going to assert, stop it, Leo. I'm going to assert, bless it. Oi, so sorry. Stop
Cat life, it's okay.
Okay, I'm very sorry about this.
Oh, I have 3 kitties. It's okay.
I'm going to assert that food and cannabis, food and medicine are critical. We need them to live. And you can grow your own food, and it's going to be so much better for you. And it's really a hot topic up here on the reservation, in Indian communities where the tribal people are, you know, up here, especially on Fort Boyd, they're starting to, you know, really go into the community and talk more and more about food sovereignty. It's really important. Where do you get your food? Where are you getting your food?
Hey, it reminds me, Charmie, I wanted to let people know historically, before there were podcasts were all over the place, there were some just regular radio shows.
Yeah.
And you had one around Ann Arbor for like 5 years or something like that. What was that called again? And what did you talk about?
Oh, I had a show called Renegade Solutions. And it was mainly, we did a lot of improv comedy, which I loved. But we talked about the relationship between the tribes and the U.S. government. It was a pretty progressive show. Like I had lots of progressive politicians on. It was a Q&A, like public affairs show. But yes, and you know something else that used to happen? We used to have to stand up, go to the TV, and turn the channel.
Hell yeah.
really did
Now,
happen.
why some of us had children to send them to do
The
it.
best reason to have a kid. Right there.
Right.
And if the reception wasn't bad, you can make somebody stand over by the
Stand there and
TV.
hold the antenna. Right. That's why some of us were born and was to make that.
Some of them took two hands. You were like, clunk.
Yeah, the big chunky brown ones with the gold trim on it. Those things I remember.
Yeah, the television with the turntable on top and the two stereophonic speakers on either side that took up like 10 foot of your wall. And
Right.
God, I've
What
never
was
felt
it?
like
What
such
was
a
it?
baby around you guys.
oh my God.
How about
Yeah, I'm in between those, like when TVs were just start.
There are many people now that grew up with cannabis being legal in one way or another.
right?
Oh my
yeah.
God. That's
Yeah.
right. You're so young. Yeah, like my sons, they are just like, get that shit away from me with anything that's subpar. Children are spoiled. They're so spoiled. And can I tell you that Michigan has the best cannabis in the country? And I know because I've gone all the way down to Key West, all the way up to northern Minnesota, and the best cannabis comes from Michigan. It really, really does. It's clean. People know what the hell they're doing. We passed our act in 2009, the Medical Act. Everybody started growing. Remember that, Jamie? Over at Third Coast, we started coagulating together. Like, what? We can talk openly about weed. It was amazing.
Kind of, yeah.
And so that was a long time ago, and people are really good at growing their own medicine now. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
That feels like so long ago. No, that's back then. That's when I thought anybody who touched cannabis was a drug addict who had no life.
I
Well,
was
you look at Rick
in,
and how, why wouldn't you think that?
I was
Yeah, I
in
emulate
8th
that.
grade. Yeah, I was in 8th grade during the medical marijuana movement, and definitely was part of the Devil's Lettuce Squad at that time in my life.
No, I still remember that time.
Yeah,
I was sick.
Yeah, that's like 13. You could be.
I was 14. Okay.
No, I was like, my epilepsy was, I had epilepsy at that time and it was uncontrolled, but just the thought of there being medical cannabis was like, what is wrong with people wanting just drugs out on the street? It's like, we don't have a bad situation already.
It's been inappropriately on a list with a lot of other actually dangerous things.
Oh yeah, like the DARE programs. I remember that. Like,
oh yeah,
and like,
oh.
So I used to be really involved in like church outreach, and I can remember, like begging these kids not to touch the cannabis, and like, you're better than that, and you don't need to do that, and like, very adamant, was like convinced it would just send them down this horrible spiral, and like, as I got older, I had like massive migraines and knee pains, and I had people in my life who were like, you need to stop eating ibuprofen like candy and just do this. And I was like, no, it's like, I can't do that. Like, you can't do that. And, like, I've never looked back.
An enemy. You cannot make war without an enemy. That's all this is. The drug war is a very real war.
It is super
real funding and real soldiers and real victims and real enemies, and we're the enemy. It's the longest.
Oh yeah, I mean, now that I know the history of like why cannabis, became illegal and a lot of that, and it's like that's all we were taught, that it's so bad and that's going to ruin your life. I mean, starting cannabis for me was basically just to prove that it would be bad, and I would get another brain surgery, because to me, brain surgery was safer and better than cannabis.
Which is crazy hearing you say that.
It's so commonly just comfortably used as a last ditch resort treatment after all these other dangerous things have been tried,
Which is literally what it was for me. I mean, I had a brain surgery, I had device implant, I had tried all the medications that I could for my seizures. So cannabis was literally a last resort before another brain surgery that had the potential to wipe out my ability to be able to make long-term memory anymore. So that's why, cannabis was to try cannabis before going to that. But me, cannabis was such a scary thing that it was like, no, I wanted the brain surgery because that to me was safer than cannabis.
That makes so much sense. And, there's still time to hold that press conference where we say, hey, guys, do us a favor. Stop sending us people who are almost dead. Okay?
Right.
We want you to give people this option, and not just with cannabis, like the land where I'm living right now, like all the medicines that I use, I go out and I harvest. And my adopted mother makes tinctures. We boil tamarack bark for neurological issues. It's amazing to me every time I'm back here to see the power of plant medicine. Cannabis is an extraordinary plant. I mean, there's really nothing like it.
And see, I never had an opposition. Like, my dad is very into herbal stuff and like things, so we've used like a lot of lavender, valerian root, a lot of those stuff. I was okay with those stuff. I was like taking those stuff while taking my medication as well, but it was just cannabis that was always such a dangerous issue. And we learned so much about it, about how it's going to ruin your life and take you into this whole spiral from the DARE program, and how you just end up in a jail cell on the floor vomiting or something, basically dead from it. So like, that's why that was always such a fear. And I finally, just was like, okay, I'll start it, prove that it's not going to work, and just get my second brain surgery.
How that
I
works.
would now continue to use it if I found myself in a jail cell vomiting.
Right.
Right? Like that wouldn't be what we do. But I will also say, like, we are slowly, like, we are making progress with like the destigmatization. So like I've had a conversation with a friend of mine recently who's like, much older, much more conservative, and has like a medical issue where their doctor finally said, hey, why don't you do this for your medical issue, right? And then they were like, wow, I never thought my doctor would recommend like cannabis, like, because this is like an old school doctor. But like we are getting to that point where like more doctors are recognizing it, and then like patients who would have never considered it are at least weighing the option.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that like my conservative friends are going to jump on board and suddenly all cannabis is going to solve all their issues. But like I can tell you, like growing up, like when I was like 18, 19, 20, like these conversations, you wouldn't have had them. They were way too taboo to touch. Now like we're having these discussions, and I have like friends and family that like will come to me and ask me questions, which like was way too taboo to touch like years ago, right? And so we are getting to that point where it's like getting somewhat more destigmatized, but we're still fighting a whole culture to change, right? Like we're not done, but we are getting steps that way.
Yeah, and this is how it's gonna help us. I mean, now that I've learned about like the drug movement and been in like the cannabis policies and learned about a lot of this stuff, I really do believe that we need to decriminalize or legalize all drugs, and treat it as a public health like issue, and not just and not a criminal issue, because really a lot of people who it's the wrong people who are getting arrested for a lot of this stuff. Legalizing it and treating it as a medical, and just having a different approach, because a lot of this stuff is really a mental health issue, is really, should not be in the hands of cops and things like that to regulate it. And, that will really help us in getting a lot less overdoses and stuff if we legalize the drugs. So we're still, a far way from getting, full legalization of all drugs. And I think the cannabis movement was an opening to do that.
Definitely. And I would argue that like the psilocybin and psychedelics movement that we see happening in Michigan right now is kind of the next step on that like track of how do we get there.
Mm-hmm.
And Julie Barron and Mike, they're filed, like those guys are doing great with Decrim Nature. And again, conversations that like there's no way I would have been having those conversations like 10 years ago. Now we're sitting here talking and asking state ledge candidates in our packet, how do you feel about Senator Irwin's psilocybin bill? Like getting them on record telling us, how do you feel about Senator Irwin's psilocybin bill? And like, we could never have asked state reps and state senators that, but this is a real thing that Senator Irwin introduced. And so like, it's totally fair game now to have that conversation with them.
Credit to Julie too, by the way. She was recently named to High Times Magazine's list of 100 most important people in cannabis in the United States of America. So,
oh my gosh,
awesome!
That's amazing.
I was going to say that I think that goes to show that the misinformation that had been taught about cannabis, once that curtain fell, the people realized that maybe they were lied to about the psilocybin. Maybe this stuff, which they've known people that have done, all their friends have done, and they may not have done, but maybe they did. And they all know it's safe. Everyone knows mushrooms are safe. Because if they weren't, we'd be seeing the damage. Just like we see the damage from all the substances that are not safe. So, you can't tell lies anymore because the children of the world are no longer believing your lies. You gave them access to the internet would be my response.
As
They
far
can
as
do their own
destigma
research.
goes, as far as destigmatizing goes, I mean, we saw that right after the passage of the Medical Marijuana Act, when we all started we couldn't believe we could talk about it. And then, I went and changed my shirt, Jamie.
I thought it'd be dildos for justice. I saw it for sure.
I
Home of Medicine, that's a beautiful
Home of
shirt.
Medicine.
That's a cool shirt. Yeah.
And when I worked there, when I worked with at Home of Medicine, of course, that's right on Main Street in Ann Arbor, and it's very close to the stadium. So on football Saturdays, we would have all these older men and younger men, couples. I waited on so many of them that would come in off the street on the way to the football game. And it would be a nephew or a son dragging the old man in, like, come on, we're going in the store. And these poor men they were clearly uncomfortable. And so I would just love them up and talk to them. My dad was a cop, talk to them about politics, whatever, and give them information about CBD, hand them really solid, simple information about the medical benefits of cannabis. And I know they all left with a very different perspective. That wouldn't be possible if those kids couldn't drag their elders into those stores on Main Street there.
Definitely.
Being on Main Street is the clue. I mean, obviously, let's talk about Ohm as far as being such a cool vibe and always been a great place, but the location. You have to be in a walkable downtown area in order to have that kind of impact. And Ohm, one of those pre-MMFLA stores that was able to make the transition over, even though ownership is transferred now and it's Ohm in title only.
They actually changed the name recently.
Yeah, did they really now?
Yeah.
It's Mission.
Yeah, it's Mission now.
I think I have a gig coming up there, actually. I think I'm making a public appearance there on July 10th, actually.
Ooh.
Oh, go
Oiled
and
right
get the littlest girl working there and put her in the tall rolling chair behind the desk and whip her in circles and laugh maniacally and say, "That's from Charmie."
Whoa!
I would be
You will.
facing felonious
You'd be personally absolved of all
sexual
responsibility.
charges, I'm sure, if I did that.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, I will not take your advice on that
You
one.
have to
my friend.
include from Charmie or else you won't be
That's
absolved.
Almost got me there.
Yeah.
Almost. I was almost going to do it.
Or you
Oh,
could do this. You could do this. You could go into inventory and say, "Hey, I need 3 rubber bands from the guy behind the desk," and then you go around the corner and shoot them at him and say, "That's from Charmie." Do that one.
She just wants you to get in trouble, right?
That's slightly more
I know
innocent.
the job of it on my
Yeah,
own.
it's a lot of fun. You get out right
yeah.
away too. That's just a little bit of trouble.
Yeah.
It's good for Rick.
But-
Rick needs that.
But no, I do think those storefronts like Ohm are great, because you're right. I had a lot of senior patients that felt comfortable coming in. I worked at Bloom City Club for a little while, that felt comfortable coming into this place, especially because Julie had her program where she could walk people through like what medicine they needed, and she'd come bring the like hesitant people into the room themselves. And like it was so cool to see like her patients and her like knowledge of it, and just like she made them feel so comfortable, and like they figured out what medicine they needed, and they were able to confidently keep coming back to replenish their medicine. Like those are the experiences that we need to continue to lift up and build on, I think,
Well,
to
like
get further the
Depot Town?
destigmatization.
Yep, got them right in Depot Town. That's very walkable. Downtown Owasso now has cannabis distribution retailers,
Wow.
and that's the largest city in that particular county. So you're talking
Yeah,
about,
yeah.
you know, remember we used to just be shoved off in the industrial zone where you had to take three different bus transfers in order to get there. And it
Where
had
they
to be before 4
manufactured
o'clock,
paint.
'cause they
Rick, I
couldn't
can
get
walk to
there
like
via 7
4
o'clock bus.
dispos from my house.
Yeah,
I know,
lucky you.
But now all of a sudden we're moving that needle. So in my opinion, no, in Michigan prior to 2008, there was some growth, but once the medical law happened and 63% of Michiganders said yes, our acceptance went up remarkably. And then it got to a saturation point where pretty much everybody who was going to get the message got the message. And now we're just fine tuning it, trying to kick out those last vestiges of drug war hysteria. But we still see them. I still saw an article in the Alpena Daily just the other day about how downstate marijuana houses are fueling the fentanyl crisis upstate because they're paying the bills for these drug traffickers who then send fentanyl and other drugs right up to Pena and the other area. Now, my point is, of course, if it's not profitable to send those drugs up there, why would they be doing it in the first place? Why do they need marijuana to prop up their operation? Because it's a loss leader. Got to get rid of some meth because it's a loss leader. You know, we really took a bath on this meth we bought, but it's
Where's
not
the
like
logic?
So we're still fighting it. Well, and
Gone.
Concept of
Gone.
The window.
fentanyl in cannabis too. We're still fighting that every once in a while too in the news media. So there
That
is
is
still battle.
unbelievable to me that you guys are still fighting this stupid shit like this. I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
Yep.
Especially this judges aren't doctors law. Are you freaking kidding me? I'm telling you, 2009, Senator Jones tried the same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing.
They just
I haven't
did
read
it.
the
They just
bill
did
at
it in the
all,
courts for a long time.
So-
Judges
so
were
the-
scared to come in, and
you'll know
Now
this,
they're
Charmie.
boldly lobbying.
Yeah, the beautiful thing is in 2021, our friend Michael Toohey, who you know, and also Michael Camoran, who you know, teamed up and they had the People v. Toohey court case, which gave registered cannabis patients seemingly the right to use cannabis within the Michigan court system. So this bill is to create a carve out that creates an exception for drug courts from the Toohey decision.
You need to
So-
end drug courts.
A lot of
End
people think that.
them. Look what they did.
One of these days.
This is the crazy part.
That's further down the
prohibition.
plan.
Yeah,
Remember?
Do it.
That's,
You guys do
that's
it.
one of
Do
these
it.
days.
But this
But
is
the
the
problem
problem
is-
about advocacy and working like this is that we take one step forward, and what they do is they learn from us. I'll never forget how Sam came into Michigan the last few hours before Prop 1 flew.
Smart
and
approach
just
to marijuana, Kevin Sabat's
and
organization.
freaking gave the NAACP some money and held a press conference with the black folks in Detroit that said, hey, you can't legalize marijuana. It's the new Jim Crow.
Yep.
It's the new Jim Crow, like that, like Michelle Alexander's landmark book that in a brilliant way detailed how today's drug war is just a continuation of Jim Crow. That man took it and spun it on its head. And I had my liberal friends from Ann Arbor calling me like, is this true? No, it's not true. But they learned that from us. They learned that from us. It's real war. It actually is real war out there.
it is, and that is
And
both our common tactics. Yeah.
And remember when Colorado went legal, Jamie? I'll never forget this. It was cold, and you called me because your car broke down. And I jump started my car and came out there, and we're trying to get my hood open so I can jump your car. And I remember looking at you, and we're cold and we're tired.
Lots of
We're working
different
lots of shit's
additional
going on.
unnecessary obstacles. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, that's where we were at the time. We had broken down cars. We lived in our cars. We were working our dicks off. We were just working so much. Sorry to swear. But I remember looking at you and thinking, my God, they lost. They
I had a lot.
They lost to us. I mean, the prohibitionists with all the money and all the legislature and all the media and all the power, they were losing to us. They started losing to us. And I didn't mind the cold after that. And I didn't mind the broken down car because I really started to feel empowered a little bit. But it's true. And it's because the truth always rises.
That's happened recently, even even in the House earlier this year when we were slowing down the momentum on 5301 or the package of bills, including.
Is that the caregiver stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. You know, on that night from election night, when Colorado legalized and we had Washington, I was doing a broadcast from Cannabis Council on Russ Belville's show. Yep. And the beauty of it as I'm sitting here, it's not just one single state victory, it's another state's victory. And then these guys got medical over here, even though it wasn't legalization and people forget about it. But there were several different state things. And then within Michigan itself, we had, I think, 12 local proposals that we were trying to follow the details on. And the excitement of the moment was about capturing information and sharing it on a national basis with the audience. But it was such a broad spectrum of victory. They were in Michigan, 5 of 8 or 5 of 12 lost in Michigan, I think, on that night. So it wasn't a complete sweep, but really that was the night America turned on, I think, right?
And they were losing to us. Maybe they lost to the advocates and to the people. We didn't have any money. We were just like, you know, we were just working so hard without a lot of support from other states.
Marijuana Policy Project was involved in I think one of those or two of those, but there were a lot of grassroots. Washington State had a huge grassroots movement in order to get their legalization going. And in California, of course, clearly in 1996, when they got medical going, that was all a grassroots thing too. So we have a pretty consistent record of winning. And sometimes when the other guys try and sponsor things like the Responsible Ohio movement, and it wasn't grassroots, those are sometimes defeated. Arizona tried to legalize cannabis one time with a completely business-centric program that disallowed all kinds of things for people, and that failed also.
Failed miserably.
Yep. So what we're seeing here is really us, Charmie, that you keep talking about. Us continue to have victories over and over and over, using the system to beat itself.
Like I keep saying, I can't believe
I
you guys
like
are
that.
still out there slugging it out like you are. God bless you.
Yeah. The local ordinances are terrible, though. They have some ridiculous local ordinances stopping people from being caregivers if you don't have 5 acres of property, or limiting you to 25% of your house size.
There was a
How can they do that though? I mean, don't remember the gentleman that we had come and speak at Hash Bash, the attorney, what's his name, that sued the state of Michigan, and they said, "Oh, sorry, you actually can't create these restrictive." Yeah, you can't. Doesn't the Terbeek ruling matter at all
in 2021,
anymore?
there was also a ruling called People v. What was it?
DeRuiter.
Yep,
Yeah,
DeRuiter. So the DeRuiter
called into question what is unreasonable.
We said that you could not, according to the MMMA, you could not restrict caregiver activity because it was a voter-directed initiative. And he said, well, you probably can, but he didn't define what they could or couldn't do. So these local communities are taking that little seed of maybe, and then they're just exploding into this gigantic prohibitionist scheme that they're throwing down on their communities. Patients can't visit their caregivers at their home. You know, you can't cultivate in an outbuilding. You must have 5 acres in order to be able to qualify as a caregiver. You have to register as a caregiver.
They're still very challenging.
We already did this.
They're all very challengeable, but because they're not going to enforce them, there is no enforcement of these things. They just go through this thing where they pass them. They scare a bunch of people from playing the game.
I will tell you this. I've seen in these people's eyes, I think enforcement's going to happen.
I was going to say, isn't that exactly what happened in the township? They tried to enforce it against Judith, or was that slightly different?
That was slightly different.
So what happened, just what's interesting about that, though, here, Charmie,
What
she
the
won.
fuck? Why won't they just leave us alone?
Charmie, listen, this woman, Judith, originally won because of Terbeek. And then the DeRuiter decision happened, and it got sent back to the Court of Appeals. And they totally just made a stupid fucking piece of shit ruling about home occupations, and you can fuck them any way you want, and you know, whatever, stuff like that.
What year was this?
This year, it's past year.
Well, like 2 years ago or something like that, right?
Yeah, it was during COVID, 2020 or 2021. Yeah.
I can't believe it.
So after legalization, after all these huge signals from everybody that said stop fucking with people, we still have courts and lawmakers still back in that 2017 mode, right? That 2007, before we even authorized anything mode.
No, and I mean that brings me back to my plea for please go vote, because like we just really need these people to not be there. Like they're just holding us back, and it's ridiculous. I mean, in Ypsi Township, it's really the supervisor, Brenda Stumbo, holding us back, and several of the trustee boards. You know, you've got other communities. I know Jen, I'm seeing her name a lot today. I follow a lot of what Jen does. She follows around and does a lot of these like city council meetings and township meetings. On the local issues.
Caregivers, but
exactly. So
Jen
like,
Bronson, if you're looking for her on Facebook, all of those audio only, Jen Bronson.
Oh yeah, Jen Bronson. Yeah. So I like to follow what like she does,
and
because
Latricia,
she's showing up. Yeah, she's showing up and she's having these conversations.
Sunshine Daisy right here.
Yeah, no, she's another really good activist that shows up at these meetings, but like holding them accountable and making them realize like we're still here and we're still awake and we didn't just sit down is really important, I think. But like also like electing new leadership and people that just aren't in these old school archaic drug war mentalities. Like that, we need it in Lansing, we need it locally, we need to make sure that statewide we have people that have that opinion, which I think we're pretty good there right now. But like, you know, some of these local spots like county commissioners, trustees, city council, like those are people that we need on our side.
And as Adam said frequently, sometimes people just got to die. Because sometimes you just have
we're-
to get so old that they drop out of the
one
voter
generation-
registry, and then they go away, and then we have new blood.
Right. I'm sorry
Just
to
coordinate
say,
'em.
I told Dr. Whitty that this weekend. We're one generation. The guys, I'm 55, 54. The guys that are 75, they're the last holdouts.
Yep.
They really are.
Yep. And unfortunately, they oftentimes occupy the largest position of power because our society has been structured to reward that type of behavior as opposed to reward fresh thinking and new attitudes and new ideas.
Yeah, no, that's super point on, Rick.
And unfortunately,
Agreed.
they have no concept of being progressive because they haven't lived in progressive times.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's a huge point too. Like this is just not their world. Like,
right.
Well, look, war on drugs was the biggest public relations scheme ever perpetrated on the face of the earth, and you can't fault people who fell victim to it because it was very persuasive. And over decades of brainwashing, they've got into a mindset that some of them simply cannot shake.
And
I mean, I grew up in that, and like honestly, if I had not become so close with Zahra, I probably would have never entered this space. Like I knew a lot of those things, and it is brainwashing to be in some of that culture. So like a lot of these electeds, they really do think that if they have, you know, cannabis in their community, it's just going to be drugs running in the streets. And like the thing is we've tried to tell them that's not the case. And at this point, like they've been told, they've seen all the reports, they've had the testimonies, they've heard the stories. They just don't give a shit, and they're not going to change. So if that's their ultimate attitude, then it's time for them to go.
And that's because this older generation would never have questioned what their government told them. And when their government lied to them, they bought it.
They grew up in a time
speaking
when
as the chair of the Young
were helpful
Dems.
members of the community now. But the fact of the matter is, most of our children nowadays have grown up with great reason to be suspicious of law enforcement, suspicious of government. We see scandal after scandal. We see negative example after negative example. So to ask a person who was born in 1980 or in 2000 to believe in government unconditionally is certainly just, it's too much nowadays. You can't. Now, in the 50s, people did it as just part of who they were as their identity. So the government really screwed themselves by lying to us so many times over war, like Vietnam, over things like Watergate, over all of the different Iran-Contra. You can run through the whole list. And then at the end of it, all the lies they told about cannabis to us over the years, the way they suppressed research, the way they hold a patent on things that they wouldn't let other people, you know, even look at. So no wonder.
Speaking as chair of Young Dems, you're definitely you're spot on. Is like we definitely question, we definitely push back, and we don't. The majority of my board is sick of a lot of the bullshit that's happening, and they want it changed, and they don't just accept what you tell them. They go and they research it, they prove it. They want to know what it really is.
We're almost done with our time today.
Zahra had to leave, but. She, of course, says goodbye and had a great time and all that kind of stuff. And Trish was on earlier, so we appreciate that. But we do have to wind down. So, Leah, any final thoughts? Anything you want to make sure that you include or point somebody to? Or
I mean, I would really encourage people to follow the Young Democrats of Michigan. Our Facebook's the most active in the Cannabis Caucus, and the Michigan Democratic Party's Facebook as well. There's a lot of great candidates there that would do a lot of the stuff we've been talking about. Please get involved. Please go vote. And just, you know, do your part to fight the stigmatization, and keep at it, guys. I appreciate you all being in this space.
Right on. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And that was a good a fundraiser we had for a potential house.
Yeah, Jimmy Wilson Jr.
And you know, Amy Carter with Trish works with her a lot, and we've had her on here and in the 68th district, and there's others. Jen had somebody on his name in front of me, but Lily Chang Schulting. We can really help to get a better composition of lawmakers with all of
Oh
this,
yeah.
with change if it kind of pans out. Thanks a lot for coming on, and
Of
we'll have you
course.
back.
Thank you guys.
You and Zahra back on for sure.
Oh, we'd love to be here. Always love hanging out with you guys. It was really nice to meet you, Charmie, and Adam. It was good to see you again. Rick and Jamie, love you always.
Cool.
I will see
Thank
you
you.
guys soon.
Right on. Thanks, Leah. Charm, anything you want to add? We also had a good time with you co-hosting with us today and chiming in.
I sure appreciate it. I'm so glad to see all of you. I really am. I really like it when Jamie looks to his left and Rick looks to his right. It looks like you're looking at each other. You were doing it a couple times. It looked like you were looking at each other and talking. It was so awesome.
Well, if you remember
You should
to
do that during the broadcast. You should look at each other and nod.
Hey,
That stand up wearing tights. Yeah.
You had to go there. Okay. Charmie, are you up by Bemidji? You up by Boundary Waters there?
Where I'm at the border, right by Boundary Waters. Yeah. So Tower, Minnesota has got 500 people in it, and it's amazing. It's ridiculous, you know. And I believe, I have to look at this, but I think Minnesota may have descheduled cannabis. I don't know. I know the cops do not give a fuck about weed here. It's very weird. It's very weird. So I've been.
That's just as good as if they keep that up consistently, you know, as anything. I mean,
Right.
Don't give
Well,
a
the reason I think this is because Becky's daughter Brita is a nurse. She's a registered nurse. She works in hospice, and her boss is working to make it possible for them to go get the cannabis and give it to the hospice people, even though they're federally funded, not federally funded, but the only way that you can do that kind of thing is if it's descheduled. She has a prescription for cannabis. I said, you can't have a prescription for cannabis. She just showed it to me. It's like, I think they descheduled cannabis here. I gotta investigate a little further. I don't know.
We'll have to
It's
talk
weird.
about that on another show.
Yeah,
That sounds
we'll
interesting.
have to check that out.
Oh,
Hey,
sorry.
No, thanks. Anything else?
I'm just glad to see your faces.
Right. Well, cool. It was nice to have you around today.
Thank you. I really loved it. Thanks for having me on, Jamie. I appreciate it. It was really lovely to hear those young ladies. And I'm also really, it feels like a lot that you guys are still doing this work. I don't know how you're still doing it. I don't know how you're still fighting those assholes.
Yeah.
But thank you for doing it.
It takes a lot out of you. Look what it did to Adam.
Yeah, it looks like a farmer now.
Yeah.
No, I used to wear overalls. I went back to them. They're easy.
I like them too. I have to admit.
The denim drawer sack. Yeah, cool.
Oh my god.
Adam, do you have anything you want to include before we?
No, I'm good. I would mention that today is Tommy Chong's birthday. So
Happy Tommy.
Happy Tommy
Happy
Day.
birthday, Tommy. Happy Tommy birthday.
for some reason we celebrate 420 and not Tommy Chong's birthday, but whatever.
His birthday came before 420.
He was famous 3 times over before 420.
Yeah.
And he's a drug war victim.
There you go.
Man, yeah, he absolutely got victimized by that online raid over
Ridiculousness.
selling bongs online. That's so stupid. It made a big example of him. We've talked to him and interviewed him about his time in prison. About that, it's just
Well, his wife was willing to be a spokesperson for the Stop the Raids campaign too, which I thought was fabulous. But then we stopped the raids, which to me is hard to believe still.
There's
But-
still don't think they haven't slipped a few in there.
Oh yeah,
Still
they're
for
still
time.
raiding. Right now, the big thing is to raid caregivers who are working outside of the system.
200 plants. They raid
200 plants. Yeah,
See, and that's, I do not see any politics involving this caregiver issue with the big business outside of police access. Like, they are probably losing their minds that they can't raid people and arrest people anymore. It's in their Michigan cop blood.
It's
really
one of the
is.
reasons why all these ordinances are going on. I know we have to shut the show down, so we'll have to have you
The
back.
ordinances- yeah, that when you guys talk about ordinances, that's all I hear is like this. It's just police encounters. They want to have. It's like we were at some hearing. I can't even remember what it was for, and the cop stood up before us and said, "We really need to be able to pull people over who are driving in the passing lane on the highway." And I was just like, "Fucking idiots! They just want to pull people over. They just want to see what's in your car still."
More reasons to continue an investigation for just arbitrarily deciding somebody is in need of it or whatever.
The majority of
We like to
felony
swear
arrests
like I've been
originate from
doing.
traffic violations. The majority of felony arrests originate from traffic violations. Jamie, we got to go.
Sorry.
Right on. So Rick, wrap us up, man.
Hey,
6:03.
look, wonderful day. Strong females. Let's celebrate that. It was a great show. You know what? If you're supporting candidates here in Michigan, or if you want to follow what we're doing, make sure to check us out on YouTube, on your Alexa machine, any of the different platforms we're on. But pay attention to the individual persons that were involved here today. Those are some of the movers and shakers in Michigan's cannabis industry.
Great show, Jamie.
It's all true. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Trish and Zahra, too. Jazz Cabbage Cafe.